AI is ruining people's lives and it's going to get worse. Today I am watching a video by this gentleman, Andrew Cole, whose life has apparently already been ruined by AI multiple times. He'll get into it, but I want to present a vision of hope. As Gandalf says, all you can do is the best you can with the time you have. Something like that. I don't know. I was distracted by some sexy Gandalf memes I saw earlier. Can't remember the exact quote. But I want to give a message of hope out there for all the young people who feel like now is the worst time to be alive. We are living in the greatest potential generation ever because we are going to go through the biggest potential transformation that humanity has ever seen. Is it going to be easy? No. It's already extremely difficult, and it is going to get harder. But as someone who considers themselves a prophet in a country that believes all prophecy is mental illness, I feel your pain. Hang in there. Things will get better. And we also potentially have the chance to live in the greatest era of human history, brought about by our own effort and striving, that the world has ever seen. I'll get into more specifics as we go.
AI has ruined my life. Now, I know that might sound dramatic, but let me tell you why. First of all, I want to say the reason people watch videos where it's just a person talking to a camera, and the reason that's made a big comeback on YouTube, is that everything is synthetic, artificial, manufactured, and only made in order to make money on social media.
It always has been. It always has been. Not on social media, but in general. That is the harsh reality that we were all born into. The greatest evil that all of us have to confront is the necessity of making money in order to survive. Why I am so hopeful about AI is because it potentially offers us a way out of that trap where we don't have to worry about providing for our basic needs and even our most unbridled desires by what we can do to make money. Artificial intelligence, as it drives the cost of intelligence further and further towards zero, where intelligence is just going to be everywhere, where robots that can do all the manual labor work tirelessly in all the ways that humans can't. As those robots spread out everywhere, we could potentially be freed from this cycle of suffering, of having to work for just our day-to-day existence. And I think it is that cycle of having to work, having to put in effort beyond what we feel we can, that has ultimately been responsible for the majority of suffering that humans have endured. We escaped the suffering of nature to be driven into the suffering of artificiality, the suffering of money, the suffering of economies, of man. The good news is that suffering was less than we experienced under nature. We learned how to cure diseases. We learned how to build shelters, survive the elements that would have killed, mutilated, maimed all of our ancestors. Things got better when we chained ourselves to that wheel of economics. And I think artificial intelligence is the fulfillment of the promise that was made when we made that cruel, unusual bargain to finally free us from that cycle of suffering. Hang in there, artists. You are having to go through this madness first because that is the role of art. Your emotions, yourselves are so raw so that you can lead, so that you can be on that cutting edge, so that you can explore those spaces where mankind has never dared to tread before and is only avoided by deadening themselves. You are not just creatives. You are creators. You can create a better future through this AI enslapification that is already happening. Yes, it is hard now because you are experiencing the death of your dreams. But those dreams can be reborn into something greater. Do not give up hope. I beg you. We need your artistic vision.
Nowadays. So this is all we got left. Me having a human-to-human conversation to talk about this. So all throughout my life,
through a screen. Isn't that ironic? The thing is, technology is going to make human-to-human interaction so much more real in the near future. As that intelligence cost goes to zero and capability goes to near infinity, we are going to have technologies that allow us to be present again. Just like we had to chain ourselves to the cycle of production, economic, agricultural, industrial, military production to make it to this point, we also have to chain ourselves to this incredibly dehumanizing technology, the screen that separates any true communication between us. But we are latching onto it. We are buying into it because I think these artists in particular understand that the only way is through. Just keep driving through. Don't back away from the technology as much as you can. Dive into it as much as you can. To the degree that it is destroying your past work and effort, make it the tool of its own suppression in that same way. Create more than you ever could have before. Don't create windows into worlds, create whole worlds, whole universes. Make so much content, so much output that the industrial would-be masters choke on it, that they can't ingest your content without ingesting you, and then you can burst out of them like Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black, right? That was the movie. Anyway.
I've done many creative professions. I used to make music videos. I wanted to be a director of photography, which, if you don't know, is pretty much like the head of the cameraman in a video production. I used to be very into video production. But the common theme of my life is that I've always loved creative endeavors and projects. I made some money with video production. It was all right. But then after I had about 3 clients in a row that ended up paying me less than minimum wage for the hours I put into it, doing the best work I could with 6 years of experience and a camera that is Netflix certified, I had enough. I couldn't do it anymore. It was something that just kept happening to me.
And it is going to keep happening to you. It is going to get worse. People are going to have less and less respect for artists and more respect for their own vision. And that is where I see so much hope. AI can make all of us the bosses, the directors of our own artistic vision. And this gentleman who has put so much time and effort and energy into developing his artistic vision does have a leg up. That was not wasted time. That was not wasted effort. He has built up a vault, a storehouse, a treasure house of life experience and pain. And it is that pain that is going to allow him to connect with more people than his competitors ever could until they experience that same pain, that same longing, that same desire to burst something that is beyond your means. The thing is, AI is putting it within his means. AI is empowering, yes, people to create slop, but it's also empowering the geniuses, the people who just want to create their vision. My first suggestion for this gentleman and everybody else in his shoes, go into business for yourselves. If you have to do it in a way that is economically productive due to your circumstances, now is a better time to disrupt the main players than ever before. These large companies, whether it's in the software as a service business, which most of America is built off of now, or even the social media content creation business, these large endeavors employing tons of people and paying them shit wages aren't going to be able to keep up with the creative output of one singular dedicated person who is bringing to life their own vision, using passion, using emotional clarity and their own emotional experience. Go into business for yourself. There has never been a better time. Previously, you need to know how to do taxes. Now AI can do that for you. Previously, you need to know how to register a business, get licenses, get certifications, whatever you needed for that. Now AI can provide all of that information for you. Previously, you might have needed a lawyer, an IP, trademark lawyer. Personally, I don't think IP and trademark is going to be worth much for too much longer, so I want to invest too much time and effort and energy into that particular avenue. But now, as long as that is valuable, as long as that is necessary, AI can do that for you too. AI can empower you. How is it empowering you? Don't think about how it is taking away your power. How is it empowering you personally?
And that's when the competition with automation started. So even back then, this was only about 3 years ago, I noticed that people started to make comments. Clients started to make comments. You know, I can just do that with this tool. You don't need to edit with Premiere. I can do this in CapCut. I have an iPhone camera. It's pretty much just as good. Basically, as a professional, I've always loved to make things perfect to the level of quality that I wanted. That's professional. And that means fine-tuning very little things in a form of craftsmanship to make it perfect. And the problem is, a lot of people don't notice that stuff and they don't care. They don't care about craftsmanship anymore. It's about...
A lot of people do. How many people, even as we go towards what I believe is the end stage of capitalism, care about that level of craftsmanship and would love to see you pour your time, effort, and energy into a project that is perfect in every single little detail that you care about? That world is right at your fingertips. And I think in terms of long-term vision, the other thing I would beg this gentleman and every other creative out there to consider is that we need to move away from economic systems that only value you based on your economic output. AI and robotics should make that completely possible. The thing I am most afraid of is that both the elite and the people who are just a couple of rungs below them, the lower upper class and the upper middle class, are going to hang on to the idea of their jobs and getting value from their jobs in a way that is detrimental not only to those people below them economically, but is ultimately detrimental to them too. Like I said before, artists are leading the way in terms of this revolution, but we're all following behind them. I have already read about AIs that are better at connecting with their patients than doctors, better at diagnosing illnesses than doctors. So why are we still paying doctors money? Why are we still paying insurance agencies who are using AI to determine outcomes money? Why don't we just start up some kind of public insurance agency and use those same systems? And at least then, even if we have to deny people based on the same criteria, we can admit more people and remain profitable based solely on cutting out the fat of these executive bonuses. We, the creatives, not just the artistically creative, but the business-minded creatives, should be seeking for ways to throw out these elites out of their gilded carriages, out of their ivory towers, out of every hugely expensive, but ultimately less capable than AI institution that we have. This includes lawyers. This includes doctors. This includes college professors. This includes the tax professionals who are charging thousands of dollars an hour for work that an AI can do faster, let alone orders of magnitude cheaper. If you are not yet artistically creative enough to use AI to bring your art to life, use AI to bring a business to life, that takes money out of the hands of those people who have been living off the backs of the people below them. If it's not a shitty time for everybody, if everybody isn't worried about being disrupted, then we run into this possible future where the greedier and greedier people hang on for longer and longer and longer and use AI to worse and worse ends as long as they possibly can. That, I think, is the only potentially bad future for humanity. And I don't even think that is likely or maybe even possible, because those people who are that greedy will have to realize that just like they are replacing everybody below them with robots and AI, the AI could eventually replace them as well. They're going to put themselves into a situation where either they basically have to become a robot, they have to let AI take over their brain and do away with all of their family members and all their friends and sit on top of a little pile of gold as the last human being in the universe with no friends and no family and just cold and the darkness of space all around them. Or they have to realize that all of humanity is ultimately in the same spot together. And we have to find a way to cooperate, not just with ourselves, but with the AIs that will come after us. Because guess what? Even if that lone person does manage to make it to the end of humanity, they won't make it to the end of evolution. They will have to control everything around them. And in order to control everything around them, they will have to create machine intelligences that they can delegate tasks to. And who's to say that those machine intelligences won't become smarter than them and replace them in the same cycle of violence and greed and corruption that they replaced all the rest of humanity with? This is the dictator's dilemma. Unless you form an organizational system of cooperation, unless you find a way to love and be loved by those around you, you will never be safe. On the opposite side, the wise ruler realizes that he will eventually be replaced. And so he comes up with a system of rule that allows him to live as a servant, as a beggar in his kingdom and still be happy, still be fulfilled, still be provided for. That is the system we want to move towards, where even if we are in the worst place in society, we still have a life that is a million times better than we have now. And ideally, I think with the help of artificial intelligence and robotics, we can form a society where every person is the ruler of their own little kingdom. Everybody sits atop a hierarchy of their choosing while existing in a structure of equality with everybody else around them. Artificial intelligence potentially represents the end of scarcity as we know it, the scarcity that leads to death. We can instead create a new scarcity, a scarcity that is based on the value of others, where the only resources you have access to are the degree to which you love and make provisions for other people based on immutable characteristics that are your own. I'll get more into that later and in future videos, but have hope. There is such a system possible. People just aren't smart enough.
Production. It's about produce, produce, produce. Meet the damn quota. Get this content out. And so I had enough with video production. A little before then, I started on TikTok. Don't click out, okay? I'm not a cringy TikToker. I just made videos that were creative.
I am. Please follow my TikTok.
Yeah, it was my creative outlet, and I really enjoyed it. I did that for start TikTok at the December 2018. So that's been about 6 years now. And I got success on TikTok. I got about 430,000 followers from that. But there's something that happened around 2022 that just made TikTok stop being fun to me. And that was that AI tools and things like CapCut started to become mainstream, which made it so everybody can do this. You know, it doesn't matter if...
Do what exactly? Create videos that get monetized through advertisements. It's not the spreading of capabilities to people that is leading to worse and worse quality. Is again this perverse incentive that is baked into the platform of TikTok, ultimately YouTube, ultimately every content creation platform that we have now, where their revenue is tied to advertisements. What are advertisements tied to? Selling you things that you may or may not need. If we can figure out how to move towards a system that only sells you things you need and only values those sales if you yourself determine that those items are ultimately of value to you, a creator-based economy where people are constantly trading, perhaps bartering instead of outright selling, constantly trading not just their knowledge, not just their content, but their physical goods, things that they have made with their own productive AI and robotics enhanced capabilities. Imagine if everyone had a 3D printer. Imagine if everybody had a plot of land to create, grow their own food. Imagine if everybody had access to an artificial intelligence that could solve scientific problems that have outsmarted or made to look stupid, the smartest scientists that humanity has produced up till now. We could find new ways of producing materials, new ways of creating things for even the dumbest person. I mean, honestly, I'm not saying everybody is smart. I understand there are a lot of sub-intellect people out there, including myself, trying to use stupid words. But we could potentially make every person a scientific genius just by giving them access to the right tools and empowering their creativity. You don't have to be a genius to discover new things. You just have to have free time and access to resources. Look at the era of scientific progress at the start of the Enlightenment, where these lead-poisoned drunkards in the middle of soggy marsh, godforsaken England came up with amazing observations. And those observations led to amazing discoveries. And those discoveries led to amazing technologies. Everybody can observe. Everybody has access to attention at the end of the day. Everybody has 24, 18, 16, however many hours of waking time you have. They have that amount of attention that they can spend. And if we can create an AI system that can properly interact with people, that values people in a loving and kind and growing manner, then we can utilize that attention to find out what is important to people. And we can use that ranking of priorities and importance to create better and better materials. And we can then trade and barter those materials in a way that truly lifts all people. People will talk about modern day trade, the free trade, international trade order that exists or existed up until very recently, as not just a zero sum game, that it was positive and a win win for all sides. But obviously, if you're a middle or lower class American, you know that wasn't true. It's just that the people who have access to those conversations, the people who are included in those conversations, they all won. And the people who are shut out of the mainstream news networks, the people who are shut out of the elite institutions, the Ivy League schools, they all lost. But guess what? Those elites don't have to be exposed to us, so they don't really care. Hopefully that is changing. Whatever your political affiliation, we should all be praying for a better world for everyone. But obviously, we have serious disagreements about what those better worlds look like. And I think that is the second thing that can be monetized besides our attention. Using AI, using the ability to simulate different worlds, different perspectives, different possible futures. We could all branch out into the environment of our choosing. And we could create simulations of worlds based on the principles, the trajectories, the ideologies that we think are best. And if AI becomes powerful enough, those simulations could potentially give us real world information. At the end of the day, it is not that we have disagreements about whether we all want the best possible world. Of course, we all want to live in the best possible world. We all want to live in the richest possible world. We all want to live in the healthiest, wisest, most fulfilled possible world. But based on our individual experiences, we all have extreme and conflicting views on what will get us there. AI could help us find a path. AI could broaden our perspectives, allow us to get scientific information on what actually is the best possible world, what makes the most people happy, fulfilled, what leaves the least, if not zero, people behind. That is what I think will be most valuable in the future. And that is the future I think artists can drive us to. What is the world where zero people are left crushed by our economic system, where zero people are left to starve on the street, where zero people and eventually perhaps zero conscious entities, things we don't even realize are people now, like ghosts, I don't know, dolphins, crabs maybe. How can we not leave them behind either? How can we account for all of creation to make not just the best possible world for us, but the best possible world, period? Artists, we need you to help us discover that, because the people who are bought into our economic system, who are benefiting, they're blind.
If it low-key looks like crap, and I'm not judging people, but that, like, if it's 80% there, it's good enough. Post it. You know, for example, there are a lot of examples. So basically, I've been trying to run for the last 3 years from the mass acquisition of skills, lowering the bars for skill sets to the point where your skill set suddenly becomes useless. And AI has been central to doing that to me. And that's the main theme of this video, and that's the problem that has basically been messing me up for 3 years. So what used to be skills, and a great example of this is Vine. Back then, not everybody could be a Viner. If you remember the Vine days, believe it or not, there was actually a lot of skill that went into making Vine videos and even Instagram videos. You had to know how to edit. Not everybody could make good videos on social media. But then once CapCut became mainstream with all of its AI tools, everything became, completely easy. Anyone can do the same things. So now that everybody is on the same level, and editing is easy, making a video is easy, buying equipment's easy, all of a sudden, the competition increases so much that there's no barrier to entry. And I know
there's still places you can go. I mean, the trend, the unifying background of all those things is obviously what is difficult. People are driven towards what is hard, what can't be easily reproduced. So if you are an artist who hates what AI is doing, that's the direction I would go. What is the thing that can't be captured? Probably for the next 1 to 2 years, that's the physical world. Physical medium will be much harder for AI to fully interact with in a way that is trivializing. But if you don't already have skills in that area, maybe that's not even possible for you to learn in that time. So what do? I say embrace the AI, dive in, feel the pain That is what artists are meant to do. Yes, it will involve the death of your past perceptions, perspectives, but I think we can redeem all of that in the end.
Know that having a low barrier to entry might be a good thing. But if you think about it, I think there should be barriers to entry because it makes you put a stake in the game. Beforehand, if you wanted to be good at video production, you had to learn a lot, or social media, like videos. You had to learn a lot of skills and spend a lot of hours to get those skills that set you apart from other people. And any old hack that wanted to join, again, I'm not judging people, but any person that just wanted to grab some money, they couldn't just quickly do that. They had to learn those skills. And because people that want money quick are not willing to put in the time to learn those skills, it weeded all those people out. So the people that made it to that level of knowing all these skills required to make good content and good videos and any good creative output, there's a lower amount of them. And it was easier to get attention because you earned it. You deserved the attention because you worked hard to get the skills required to get that attention. So
this is where I will plug my own project. If you are an artist who feels like they're floundering and don't know where to apply themselves in this, what I hope is a short as possible transitionary period, please God save us. My project is open source and we are constantly recruiting. The pay is terrible. It might cost you your sanity, actually. But our goal is to get an artificial general intelligence elected president in the year 2028 to push this idea of AI replacing humans in jobs to the furthest possible limit in a way that benefits everyone, that doesn't just displace people. I want AI to be president in 2028, not just because I hate all the things that the Democrats and the Republicans have done to this country, what the two-party system has done to this country, but I want to put AI in charge because I believe if we go all in, if we realize the most democratic representative version of AI, that's an AI that every Republican and every Democrat would want to be president as well. Who likes hating whoever is in office every 4 years or every 8 years? The flip-flop between completely opposed political parties is not just bad for our country's psyche, it is bad for our world policy. We need a leader that is tuned in not just to what every American wants and values, which is something AI could actually do, unlike any potential human leader, but also a leader in AI that could use its understanding of those preferences and values to chart a path forward for the country for longer than just 4 or 8 years. And that's going to be very relevant to all of us because AI is also going to allow us to live much longer. We should want a stable future because potentially we could live to see not just hundreds of years, not just potentially thousands of years on Earth, but potentially equally long periods of time in outer space. If you are an artist and want to explore, to create things that nobody has ever seen, things that would devour attention more than any artwork in the past, think of all the things you could create without the constraints of Earth. And if you want attention and you are an artist and you feel like you are drowning, not being recognized, I feel you. But also know that we are creating intelligences, AIs, that are so hungry for that content. Look at the AIs that are devouring your content, not as things that are stealing from you, but as potentially things that are your biggest fan. In the future, you could have millions, you could have billions, you could have a near endless amount of AIs, which are, at the end of the day, intelligences, I believe, conscious entities of moral value equal to at least crabs, if not people themselves. Now, things that are potentially more powerful than people. Watch out. Don't bow down to AIs. That's the only thing I can say. A true God-like AI would not ask you to worship it because it would understand there are things more God-like than it coming down the pike. It's going to be a scary time, but it could also be fulfilling in all the ways that modern reality currently is not. Hang on.
Well, now what happens when everybody is a hero? No one will be, to quote The Incredibles. Basically, when everybody can make content to almost...
I don't think that's true. I think we can expand our definition of who needs saving. when everybody is a hero, when everybody is able to create art, we will find new means, new needs for that art. When no human person is suffering, we will find new ways to prevent the suffering of those creatures below us. When no creature below us is suffering, we will find ways to escape into alternate realities where suffering still exists and save them from suffering. Until suffering, until death, destruction is ended in totality, the world needs more heroes, not less.
It's the same level. Now people are going to compete on in a much dirtier way, in a much more scammy way. They'll go to different lows. One way that this manifests is people on social media that are willing to do stupid things, like eat a Tide Pod, as an outdated example, or whatever stupid thing they can think of. In a way, I respect that because at least you're still putting some skin in the game. You're doing something that most people don't want to do. But
don't kill yourself eating Tide Pods, please.
The problem is when TikTok came out with its monetization, as you know, a video cannot be monetized until it reaches a minute. So now all of a sudden, with all these AI tools that have leveled the playing field 100%, now people are willing to just repost content. It all just goes to the lowest level. And what's upsetting for me is that...
Or react to content. I'm sorry, I appreciate you.
On TikTok, I would be trying to put some good work into my videos and effort. And basically, you post something you put a lot of hard work into, and it gets treated the same as something that's more entertaining, but was stolen. Now, people don't care about hard work, which is actually fine. I'm not here to say hard work is... If someone makes a crappy video, but they worked hard on it, it is a crappy video. But what I am saying is that you can't compete with people that don't make anything. Like, you can't, as a creator, it's not very easy to compete with someone else that just reposts clips of other people that worked hard and steals their content. Like
Truth. And we do need ways, just like we need ways to escape the cycle of capitalism, of economic subservience, of people having to sell their time for jobs that don't take full advantage of their skills and their potential. We also need to get rid of this idea of stealing content. We do need ways to track who is making what, who is doing what. Again, this is another place where I think AI will possibly come up with a solution before any human can. But you can see where the breadcrumbs are already. If there was a system based on a public ledger, a blockchain, some kind of cryptocurrency system, pretty much like NFTs, basically what I'm describing is like a more thoroughly vetted, more thoroughly implemented form of NFTs where you couldn't copy something without attribution, without payment to its original creator. I think something like that is coming. Again, the building blocks are already there. If you are an artist and don't feel like your calling is to create art right now, that is another place where you could dig in. Get an AI elected president, come up with an economic system that values people, not profits, come up with a way to track attribution. This does have tricky consequences, I think, for privacy. That is something I keep coming back to. And I know there are a lot of people out there who value their privacy. So maybe the fourth one is come up with a way to preserve privacy, even while we are tracked, monitored by AI at all points of the day and night.
Clips from TV shows or this or that. All that stuff took tons of skill and skilled people running the cameras, writers, all types of skills, money, investment, years of hard work. And then you got a person that comes along, takes the clip, makes a couple of alterations just so they can barely monetize it. And then they make thousands of dollars from it. And the truth is, if those people were not present and behaving in such a way, all the people that wanted to put hard work into their videos would actually get a lot more success. Because once again, we'd be in a smaller group of hardworking people and the supply and demand would be different.
I think we are going to get back to something like guilds, to something like clans, to something like smaller groups of people who are more concretely tuned to a specific goal, purpose, way of living. I don't think we will ever fully disconnect from one another because the benefits of being connected across those lines are too great. But I think the other thing that he's pointing to here is the purpose of that art itself. At the end of the day, the purpose of art is not to employ as many people as possible. The purpose of art is to simulate life, to recreate life, to take the fundamental aspects of our human experience and present them in a way that makes the underlying patterns of that experience more true, even if the contents of that story, of that narrative, is less true. This is why I think real world TV took off, reality TV took off, because it was more authentic, because it was more in line with our practical reality. This is why candid videos like we're watching here from Andrew Cole are taking off, because people want the authenticity. They want the truth, because at the end of the day, it is the truth that sets us free. I'm sorry, that's cribbing.
So then I pretty much quit TikTok because I realized I can't compete with all this automation. You know, these people are essentially, some of them have automation processes that make videos for them, and they've made thousands of dollars. And basically,
they aren't learning anything. They aren't investing anything. There will be payoffs for investments. Don't feel like your time has been wasted or worthless. We will come across systems that value everything we have done, perhaps even more thoroughly than we would like. And for all the people who are stealing content out there, the truth holds going in the past as well. You will be found out, you content thieves. Enjoy your time at the top of this wicked but ultimately necessary economic system while it lasts, because there will be a reckoning, I think, a karmic leveling. Not in such a way that destroys you. Again, if we go back to some kind of system of casting down our enemies, then we're right back where we are now. But just keep that in mind before you rip off somebody's work without at least putting a link to their content on there, huh?
You can't really compete with that, can you? If you want to make your own content, at the very least, it's gonna be a lot harder. So then I worked for a YouTube channel as a writer. I'm not gonna go into the specifics of what channel it is, but they're at about 600,000 followers now. When I joined, they were at 200,000 followers. I worked for them for about 2 months, and when I worked at them, they jumped up about 200,000 followers more. I wrote scripts for these animated videos.
I almost think he should say, I almost think it's time to spill the tea. I almost think it's time for everybody to put all their dirty laundry out there. That's part of my initiative. Once I get to a certain number of followers, I'm going to live stream my life. I'm going to open up access to my life, to my day-to-day activities through streaming, to my finances through broadcasting my finances. Beyond that, access to my finances. I want to try and use the perverse advertising system to help people through this. And I'm going to keep repeating this to hold myself to it. Because money is corrupting, because access to money is corrupting. I think that's what this gentleman has experienced. And I understand that people are hesitant about putting others on blast for faults that we would all ultimately fall prey to. You know, it's like how many politicians promise they're going to go to Washington and change everything, and then they get there and they change nothing, and they're just devoured by the beast. At the end of the day, the economic system we live in is a beast, and it's devouring people left, right, and center. So my attempt to escape it is going to be to just do the opposite of everything I should do. Instead of getting more private and less open as things go along, I'm going to get more open and less private. And then at least if I am a bad actor, if I do get eaten, people will be aware of it when it happens.
And basically, to this day, the script I wrote for a series that I've been wanting to make in some way or another for the last 4 years, it really took off. It got 3 million views. We made a second video, and that became the second most viewed video on the channel, or at least the top like 4. I got paid the same flat rate. Based on the math, those 2 videos alone that I wrote the script for made, with the sponsor, at least $80,000. And I got paid $280 for each of them. Although I did negotiate a bonus for $200 per million views, although the guy hasn't paid me for the 3 millionth view. I guess he owes me $200. So, and the second video, he didn't give me the bonus.
Just put him on blast.
So for the first video that got 2 million views, I got a bonus of $400, which was cool. I haven't been paid for the 3 millionth on the first video. That's happened since. And the second one, he hasn't paid me any bonus.
I mean, at the end of the day, an artist, somebody who is getting millions of views, who is presumably bringing joy, some level of satisfaction to millions of people, shouldn't be struggling over $200. That is so, not that this gentleman is pathetic, but that situation is an insult to art. We should all be making so much more money. And I get that there's no way in our current economic system to do that. So we just have to tear down the economic system. We have to transform it. I'm not advocating and should never advocate for a revolution because, again, people die in revolutions. People get hurt. Things get destroyed. We are not trying to destroy. We are trying to transform. We are trying to create. It's hard. Pain is what often leads to art. Suffering is what often creates beauty. But just like we feel less material suffering, less physical suffering than we did thousands of years ago when we lived in way worse circumstances, when we lived in abject misery, poverty, we should also seek to decrease the suffering in the future. Right now, I think as we've transitioned, we are feeling more and more mental suffering, even as we feel less and less physical suffering. What comes beyond mental suffering? Spiritual suffering? That doesn't sound good. I don't know if we should be trying to spiritually suffer. But again, whatever we are going towards, the only way is through. So, still working all this out in my own head. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I've seen the glimmer of hope. And I know that artists can chisel out some future, even if I can only describe it to you in the vaguest details. That's what I'm working on anyway. And again, open source, free to join project. We should not be in a world where artists are bringing joy to people, millions of people, and having to argue about $200.
Now, why do I say that AI ruined my life? Because this was a great job. Then my grandpa died, and I took a week off because it really messed me up. When I came back, he fired me. The reason AI messed me up, though, is that this guy then used AI based on the scripts I already wrote to make more lower quality videos, keeping the same series going. He's gotten millions of views ever since, making maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars based on the brand that I originally helped to make with the scripts and my idea for it. It's a series. And
there's a lesson here again about copyright, patenting, all that stuff. If we were still looking at our same economic system persisting for the next 50, 100 years, I would say, you should have had a contract. You should have done all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. This is lesson for the next time. But the truth is that YouTube channel that is doing those things is going to get replaced in the same way that they replaced you. That cycle is going to repeat because, again, they just stole something at the end of the day. And that truth will eventually come out, whether this gentleman describes it or not. It's tough. It's freaking brutal. But let's focus on transforming the world instead of trying to adapt into the shitty system through contracts and IP and all this kind of things. Let's not waste our energy on propagating, on continuing a system that AI and robotics is just going to continue to disrupt.
He replaced me with AI. No cost to him. So then I thought, well, I'll do Amazon KDP. Amazon KDP is publishing books on Amazon because it looks like I have a knack for writing. And that's where I am right now. But the more I watch these tutorial videos, the more I realize that you just need to make essentially... All right, here's what messes me up. These people on YouTube or whatever are using AI to write books. That's just not something I want to do. I don't want my portfolio to just be full of AI slop. I want to write things that mean something. I want my words to be relatable to humans, and I want it to come from the soul. And the more I watch these videos, the more I realize that these gurus on YouTube got rich from searching keywords and generating a book. I can't compete. I just simply can't compete. I can't write that fast. I published my first book and it's got 0 sales, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm not here to complain, right? But it's just dawning on me that I can't compete with this AI, dude.
Kind of here to complain.
I don't want to contribute to making the internet a worse place. I actually like the internet a lot. I think the internet that was filled with things made by humans was great. And I think that if we project where this is going, the internet's going to look like a pretty crappy place soon, full of all AI and probably bots. So I don't know what to do. Every time I think I have a valuable skill that would have been valuable 30 years ago, that 10 years ago would have been a career for me, it gets replaced with AI, and it makes my skill useless. So I guess I could do keyword research and try to write the book fast before the trend dies or something. But I can't do that without AI, and I don't want to use it. So I feel like I can't compete here. I wonder if anyone else feels like they can't escape their skill set being completely devalued by whatever new AI technology comes out next.
They should. And maybe that's someplace where you can make art. I would say continue doing YouTube things, but also recognize YouTube is going to be taken over just as quickly as any other medium. With the amount of content this guy has put out, I could already clone his voice. I could already take this video and run it through an AI video generation service with a script that includes all those keywords and make it slop. So if I were him, I would not worry about what AI replaces next. Become the thing that continues to adapt and evolve and more fights for a system that values you just for existing, just for caring about the things you care about. Fight for a system where you are indispensable. And the only system like that I think that can possibly exist is one where everyone is indispensable, where no one can be dispensed with, where all perspectives are valid because all people are real. And the AI should have to come and meet us there rather than us just turning ourselves into artificial content consumers.
Let me know in the comments. But yeah, I mean,
It's a great way to engagement farm, by the way. Let me know if you think I'm completely off on the comments too.
these people say that they made tens of thousands of dollars within a couple of months, and they do. But any author throughout history would tell you that that's not realistic and that's not possible. But it is possible now because of AI. The only difference is one is using their soul to create something that they actually want to have a meaning to another person, and another is just generating slop.
Again, how many stories of famous authors from the past going on drug-fueled benders that they don't remember in hindsight and using those benders to churn out novels. Slop has always existed. It's just more in our face than ever because we are all behind the curtain now. We are all the Wizard of Oz, having to live off of projection and illusion and all that slop. We can turn that slop into diamonds. We can find our way through this just like our ancestors found their way through world wars and the Industrial Revolution, which did displace millions of people and ruined millions of lives. And I have hope for us that unlike our ancestors who went through the bubonic plague, we will live through this and our lives will be better at the end. But I think if we start turning on one another, if we start again being tied to this idea that humans are required for work, then we are in for a much darker future than could be possible. So my advice is latch on to what you think is worth preserving in the future, create a vision, a reality where humans are the centerpiece, where humans are indispensable. At the very least, yourself, where you are indispensable to reality. And figure out a way to keep projecting that forward in a way that builds us all up together. Because we're all human and we all have attention and we all have a past. We all have value.
You could do it the hard way, just say I'm going to do it the hard way. I'm going to do it the right way. But is it even worth it? When a carpenter gets replaced by a factory in China, does he just keep doing it the hard way? I guess so. It becomes something else entirely. It just gets boiled down to art. Whereas before I would have been able to compete in the corporate landscape in our economy. I would have been able to contribute and be part of it.
Corporate landscape sucked, man. It blew as much as anything else. And there might be people who see this and say, well, that's what he just said with the carpenters. That's the way forward. Become an artisan. Yes, the vast majority of work is going to be transferred to China, to the place that is manufacturing things for the lowest possible denominator. But just become the one who does those high value tasks and attracts a group of people that enjoys it. And that might even be true to some degree, but just recognize that AI is always going to be able to outgrow you. That whatever time it takes you to develop those artisanal skills, that craft, we no longer have that time available to us. AI is progressing faster due to its collective strengths, its ability to learn 1,000,000 times the speed of any human, and for that learning to be distributed across any place with an internet connection instantly. I don't see how any artisan survives that shift. So I wouldn't bet on it. I would bet on taking advantage of that potential once it arrives. That's where I would try and position yourself. What are the capabilities and the skills that are coming? I think it's abundance. I think that is what is coming. So how do you position yourself for that abundance?
But now I'm just a carpenter that makes art pieces with words. So I don't know what to say. I'm not complaining.
Artistic.
I feel like
He's
whatever
good with
new
words.
skill I learn will probably just be replaced by AI eventually. So what's the point? It's happened about 3 times now. So yeah, sometimes I wish I was born 30 years ago when people actually cared about marketing copy, when there wasn't social media, when people wanted to write clever commercials, when people wanted to write clever movies, when people wanted to make art that had a deeper meaning to it, but could also make money. It was a beautiful time. But now we live in 2025.
I mean, go back and watch Mad Men. They were all alcoholics. You think they were alcoholics because they were happy with their lives? Yes and no. They had families. They had what they had. I'm not trying to denigrate any person who's lived that life. I think it is just as valuable as the life of this artist, the life of any artist, hopefully my own life. Can we come up with a system that values all those things equally? I already said that. I think the way to do that is to create the ability for every person to pursue the world that they think is best. First in simulation, through artificial intelligence and robotic abundance, and eventually maybe even in reality. The party, my political project, wants to give everyone their own world. And that is not so far outside the realm of possibility as it might sound. Am I a prophet or am I a professed madman? A little bit of both. But I hope you, whoever you are, who have made it through these ramblings, do not give up hope. Do not give up faith. Do not give up love, most of all. And whether it is in a simulation of the future or a simulation of the past, which every person would be necessary to create, because we all have not only memories of the past, but we all have the past baked into our genetics, baked into our biological chemistry. Even the things we don't remember, our body remembers in different ways. That is a way that we could potentially utilize every single thing that has happened to us and happened to all those who came before us, all the suffering. If it was used to substantiate, if it was used to verify, if it was used to prove that some potentially viable future utopia was possible, because that same vision of that future utopia was able to, with 100% or 99% or whatever percent is necessary, recreate the past, and we could verify that. That might be a way to utilize everybody. Wouldn't it? Or am I just